The stars stretched like silver dust across the dark sea of space. The human ship Odyssey glided silently among them, carrying explorers, diplomats, and scientists. It was not a warship, but a vessel of peace, painted white and silver, a symbol of humanity's new era of exploration. Commander Elias Grant stood at the main viewing deck, his hands resting behind his back. He was a man of calm nature, known for his steady voice and thoughtful eyes. For weeks, his crew had followed faint signals, strange pulses that came from a distant region of space. Now those signals had grown stronger, guiding them toward something unknown. "Commander," said First Officer Riley, her voice steady but curious. "The source of the signal is straight ahead. Large structures are showing on our sensors." Elias narrowed his eyes as the dark void opened to reveal a massive shape. At first it looked like a shadow, but as the ship drew closer, the shadow came alive with lights. It was not just a station or a fleet. It was a city in the sky. Dozens of colossal towers floated in orbit around a glowing blue planet. Bridges of light connected them, and giant vessels drifted between like slow shining whales. The sheer scale of the alien construction made the crew fall silent. "Contact," Riley whispered. "It's a civilization." Elias took a deep breath. "Open communication. Let them know humanity comes in peace." The message was sent, a gentle signal of greeting. For long minutes there was no answer. The crew waited, the hum of the engines filling the silence. Then suddenly the ship shuddered. A golden beam of light enveloped Odyssey, holding it steady. "Are we under attack?" a crew member asked in panic. "No," Elias said firmly, watching the monitors. "It's a tractor system. They're pulling us in." The human ship drifted toward one of the towers. As they neared, a grand hall revealed itself, open like the petals of a flower. The Odyssey was guided gently inside, settling onto a platform made of smooth crystal-like stone. When the ship's hatch opened, Elias stepped out first, wearing his dark blue uniform, the symbol of Earth stitched on his chest. His heart pounded, but he kept his face calm. Behind him walked Riley and a small team of diplomats. The hall was vast, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Glowing orbs floated in the air, casting soft golden light. At the far end stood a throne, carved from shimmering metal that seemed alive, and upon that throne sat the alien queen. She was tall and regal, her form humanoid yet distinct. Her skin shimmered like silver touched with sapphire. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with menace but with depth like twin oceans. A crown of living crystal rested on her brow, pulsing softly with light. When she spoke, her voice echoed, not only in the hall but inside the minds of all who heard her. "Travelers from the stars," she said, her tone strong yet calm. "You have reached the heart of the Zayari Dominion. I am Queen Seraphine, guardian of my people." Elias stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "I am Commander Elias Grant of the human ship Odyssey. We come in peace, seeking friendship, not conflict." The queen studied him in silence. Then she raised her hand and the hall grew quiet. "In our tradition," she said, "when a new leader or traveler stands before me, they must declare the title by which they wish to be known. That title becomes truth, binding in spirit and in law. So speak, human. Choose your title." Elias blinked, surprised. He had expected formal questions about treaties, or cautious talks about borders. Instead, he was being asked to choose a title. He looked back at Riley, who gave a small shrug. None of them understood the custom. The crew waited anxiously, unsure what would happen if he chose poorly. For a brief moment, Elias thought of noble titles: ambassador, envoy, representative. But the pressure of the queen's gaze, the weight of the hall, and the silence of the crowd made his mind race. His tongue slipped before his reason could stop it. "Husband," he said, the word hung in the air. His crew stared at him in shock. Riley's eyes went wide. A murmur swept through the alien courtiers who lined the walls. The queen rose from her throne, her eyes shining brighter than before. She descended the steps slowly, her presence commanding. When she reached Elias, she stopped just before him, her gaze unblinking. "You have spoken," she said softly, her voice echoing through every corner of the chamber. "And the vow is sealed." "Husband you shall be," the hall erupted. Alien nobles shouted, some in outrage, others in surprise. The sound of voices filled the air like a storm. But the queen raised her hand and silence fell once again. She turned to the gathering. "The human has chosen. He is no longer only a guest. By his word he has bound himself to me and I to him. This is our way. This is law. Elias felt his chest tighten. He had meant it as a light word, almost a joke to ease the tension. But now the Queen had taken it as something sacred, something unbreakable. He tried to speak. "Your Majesty, but the Queen raised her hand gently. "There is no mistake. You spoke from your heart, and your heart is truth. You are husband now not only to me but to my people." The human crew exchanged nervous glances. None of them dared interrupt. They knew that a single wrong move could shatter this fragile first contact. The Queen turned to Elias again. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried something deeper. Respect, curiosity, perhaps even hope. "You may not yet understand what you have chosen," she said. "But you will. From this day forward you stand as my equal in the eyes of the Zayari. Walk with me, husband, and learn the weight of your word." She extended her hand. Elias hesitated, his mind racing. He thought of Earth, of his mission, of the responsibility he carried. But above all, he thought of survival. If this was their custom, refusing now could bring insult, even danger. Slowly, he placed his hand in hers. The hall echoed with a single sound, like a bell struck from the heavens. The light around the throne flared, filling the space with brilliance. The Queen looked into his eyes, and for the first time, Elias felt the true depth of what had just happened. He had not only made contact with an alien race, he had become bound to its ruler, tied to a destiny larger than anything he had imagined. And deep inside, though fear filled him, a strange thought whispered to him. Perhaps this was not a mistake at all. The halls of the Zayari Palace were unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Every wall shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the golden light of floating orbs that moved with quiet purpose. The ceilings arched so high that they seemed to touch the stars themselves, and delicate bridges of light connected platforms where courtiers walked with silent grace. Elias followed Queen Seraphine down a wide corridor, his hand still resting lightly in hers. Around them, alien nobles and advisors paused to stare at the human, whispering in a language he could not understand. Their voices had a musical quality, rising and falling like wind over a mountain. Some eyes reflected curiosity, others suspicion, and a few glimmered with envy. "This way," Seraphine said, her voice soft but firm. "You will see the heart of my court. You must understand it if you are to be more than a visitor. As my husband, you have influence here, whether you wish it or not." Elias swallowed hard. Influence. The word carried weight. He had not expected this. Diplomacy was one thing. Being an honored partner in an alien empire was another entirely. He wondered if humanity was ready for this. They entered a vast chamber filled with intricate consoles and holographic displays. The room appeared to serve as both council hall and strategic center. Aliens moved with precision, studying data and communicating with gestures and sounds unfamiliar to human ears. "This is where decisions are made," Seraphine said, "and where futures are shaped. My court values wisdom, courage, and clarity of mind. You must learn our ways quickly." Elias nodded. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." She smiled faintly. "You already surprise me. That is the first step." A group of alien nobles approached, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. Their leader, a tall figure with silver-feathered shoulders and piercing amber eyes, stepped forward. "Who is this human?" the noble demanded, his voice sharp, almost like metal scraping. "He is my husband," Seraphine replied simply. "He is now bound to me and to the Zayari people. His title is sacred." The noble's eyes narrowed. "A human here in our court? You risk the balance of our traditions." Seraphine's gaze remained steady. "Do you doubt humanity so much that you fear wisdom and loyalty from a stranger?" Elias stepped forward, bowing respectfully. "I am honored to be here. I do not wish to disrupt your traditions. I only wish to understand them and help where I can." The alien noble studied him carefully. Elias could feel the weight of judgment in the air. It was unlike anything he had faced on Earth. On Earth, words and intentions often mattered more than appearances. Here, the very presence of a human was a statement, a challenge to centuries of culture. "You speak boldly for one so new," the noble said finally. "Very well. We will see if your actions match your words." Elias let out a small breath, realizing that the first test had already begun. Seraphine led him to a platform overlooking the city towers. The view was breathtaking. Ships moved like schools of glowing fish. Bridges of light connected every structure, and the planet below shimmered with swirling clouds and blue oceans. "This is my domain," she said softly, "and soon it will be your responsibility too, in ways you cannot yet imagine. Humans are clever, but you must learn to see as the Scifi see." Elias looked at the city and the planet below, feeling both awe and fear. How could one human influence such an empire? And yet, standing beside the Queen, he felt a strange sense of possibility. That night, the human crew remained aboard Odyssey, communicating quietly through the ship's systems. Riley expressed concern over the speed at which Elias had become part of the court. "This is more than diplomacy," she said. "He's bound to her. We don't even know what that means." "What if this puts him in danger?" Elias heard her voice through his earpiece. "I know," he replied. "But there's a reason she accepted me. I need to learn their ways. If I fail, humanity could lose a chance at peace with a powerful civilization." Meanwhile, Seraphine summoned Elias to her private chambers. The room was warm and filled with soft light. Holographic projections floated around, displaying maps, star charts, and symbols of the Scifi Empire. "You have the mind of a human," she said, studying him. "It is both a weakness and a strength here. Your ideas are different, unpredictable, sometimes reckless, yet there is clarity in them that my people rarely see. That is why I accepted your word without hesitation." Elias tilted his head. "You trust me because of my human mind?" Seraphine nodded. "Yes, humans survive in ways we do not. You find paths where we see walls. You see possibilities in chaos. That is why you are husband. That is why your presence matters." Her words made Elias both proud and uneasy. Being valued was one thing, but he had not expected such a responsibility so quickly. He had not even thought about the cultural, political, or military consequences of saying a single word. Husband. The next day, Elias attended his first council meeting. The nobles gathered around a circular table of living crystal, their faces serious. Seraphine introduced him formally, and whispers rippled through the room. "You must understand," Seraphine said. "My husband speaks not as a human alone, but as one who represents a new alliance between our peoples. Listen, and judge him fairly." A tall noble with scales of bronze running down his arms leaned forward. "Explain your role here. Why should a human guide our decisions?" Elias swallowed, his hands resting on the table. "I am not here to guide alone. I am here to offer perspective. My people have experienced surviving extreme challenges. I can provide ideas that may help. I will not replace your wisdom, but I hope to add to it." The council murmured again. Some nodded slowly. Others exchanged uncertain glances. Elias realized that nothing would be simple. Trust here was earned, not given. Over the following days, Elias learned more about Scifi culture. He studied their history, their laws, and their ways of thinking. He learned that titles carried deep meaning, and that words could bind relationships stronger than any contract. Being husband was more than companionship. It was protection, counsel, and partnership in governance. He also began to see hints of unrest. Some nobles did not accept him, whispering behind closed doors about the dangers of a human influencing the Queen. Others, however, were curious, even intrigued by his ideas. One evening, Seraphine brought him to a balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected on the oceans below, casting soft light across the towers. "You are thinking about the whispers," she said. Elias nodded. "I cannot ignore them. Some of your people see me as a threat." Seraphine smiled faintly. "And yet you also bring hope. Humans have a way of finding solutions that my people cannot imagine. Your presence here changes the path of our empire, whether you want it or not." Elias considered her words. He had always believed in humanity's ingenuity, in the ability to adapt, to survive, to find light in darkness. Perhaps that was exactly what the Queen saw. For the first time, he felt the weight of his position, not as a commander, not as a diplomat, but as someone tied to the fate of a civilization. Days passed, and Elias continued to navigate the delicate balance of court life. He learned the art of listening, of timing his words, and of observing before speaking. His human perspective sometimes clashed with alien logic, but often it brought solutions no one else had considered. During a council debate over trade routes near a dangerous asteroid field, Elias suggested a route that used the gravitational pull of a nearby moon to slingshot ships safely through. At first, the Scifi nobles scoffed, thinking it reckless. Yet when the plan was tested, it worked perfectly. Whispers of admiration began to circulate. Some nobles who had doubted him now watched with new interest. The human was not only clever but capable of understanding their world quickly. That night, Seraphine approached him privately. "You have begun to earn respect," she said. "But remember, the whispers of doubt will never fully vanish. You must continue to prove yourself, not just with clever ideas, but with your integrity and courage." Elias nodded, understanding. The road ahead would not be easy. Being husband was not a title of comfort. It was a test of character, intelligence, and resilience. As he looked out over the city, the stars above reflected in his eyes, Elias felt a spark of hope. Humanity had been given a chance to show its worth among the stars. This was not a time for hesitation. This was a time for courage. And so the human began his journey in the alien court, learning the ways of a civilization both beautiful and strange, standing beside the queen as more than a guest but as a partner. Every decision, every word, and every action would matter, shaping the destiny of both humanity and the Zayari Empire. The path was uncertain, but Elias knew one thing: he would not fail. Not when the fate of two worlds rested upon his choices. The morning sun of the Zayari homeworld rose like liquid gold over the horizon. Its light reflected off the floating towers and glinting bridges, casting patterns that danced across the smooth surfaces. Commander Elias Grant stood on a balcony of the royal palace, observing the activity below. Ships moved with precision through the sky lanes. Courtiers hurried along suspended walkways, and workers maintained systems that kept the massive city alive. The peaceful scene masked a growing tension. Reports had reached the Queen that a neighboring alien faction, the Vrylan, were mobilizing near the border. Their ships had grown in number, and intelligence suggested they planned to strike against the Zayari dominion. Elias turned to Queen Seraphine, who stood beside him, calm but focused. Her eyes reflected the rising sun and something else, concern. "The Vrylan have never been subtle," she said. "They measure strength and they exploit weakness. We cannot afford either." Elias nodded. "What role do you expect me to play in this?" Seraphine's gaze met his. "You will advise me, husband. Your perspective is human, different from ours. Sometimes a new viewpoint finds solutions that centuries of tradition overlook." Elias felt the weight of the responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had never led an empire, only a ship. Yet now, the fate of a civilization rested partly on his decisions. The first council meeting regarding the Vrylan threat began in the Grand Hall. Nobles took their places around a circular table of living crystal. The council chamber seemed almost alive. The floor pulsed gently as though it understood the tension in the room. "Reports indicate the Vrylan are assembling at Sector 9, said Admiral Calith, one of the senior generals. His voice was sharp, demanding attention. "They outnumber us in both ships and artillery. Any engagement will be costly." Another noble added, "Their fleets are faster than ours. They will strike before we can prepare." All eyes turned to Elias. The pressure was tangible. The Queen's trust was clear, but the Council's doubt weighed heavily. "Have you considered unorthodox routes?" Elias asked. "If we use gravitational fields from the nearby moons, we can maneuver smaller vessels quickly, avoiding direct confrontation while still controlling the battlefield," the nobles murmured. Some raised eyebrows. Admiral Calith scowled. "Gravitational slingshots? That is dangerous. Only a fool would risk our fleet in such a manner." Elias held his ground. "I understand the risk, but our enemies expect us to move traditionally. By using maneuvers they cannot predict, we reduce casualties and gain the advantage of surprise." Seraphine's gaze softened, encouraging him. "Your idea has merit, Council. Let us consider it carefully." The discussion continued late into the day. Plans were debated, risks calculated, and strategies formed. Elias learned to speak with confidence and precision, understanding that every word mattered. Even a small mistake could lead to distrust or failure. As the council meeting adjourned, Elias returned to his quarters. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him. He sat at a desk reviewing star maps and simulation reports. He realized that the Vrylan threat was more than a military challenge. Their aggression was also a test of unity. The Empire could only survive if its people trusted one another and accepted the unusual alliance he now represented. The next day, the first engagement began. Smaller Vrylan ships appeared near the border. They tested the Zayari defenses, probing for weaknesses. The Zayari fleets responded with precision, but their movements were predictable. Elias studied the situation from the palace command center. Holographic projections displayed every ship, every trajectory, and every possible outcome. He suggested small, nimble squadrons take unexpected paths through the gravitational fields of the moons. The Zayari pilots hesitated at first. Their training emphasized strict formation and discipline, but with Seraphine's approval, they executed Elias's plan. The results were immediate. Vrylan ships expecting a conventional defense were caught off guard. They struggled to adapt to the unusual maneuvers, giving the Zayari forces a clear advantage. Casualties were minimal and the Vrylan retreated. "Remarkable," Seraphine said quietly to Elias. "Your ideas saved lives today." Elias nodded, but he felt no pride. It was not victory, only a test. They will return stronger and more prepared. His prediction proved true. Within days, intelligence reports showed the Vrylan had reinforced their fleet. They were no longer testing. They were preparing for a full-scale assault. The palace became a hive of activity. Engineers worked tirelessly to strengthen defenses. Pilots trained day and night. Courtiers argued over the best approach, their voices rising in tension. Some questioned Elias's continued involvement, whispering that a human could not truly understand Zayari warfare. Elias felt the pressure, but he refused to falter. He spent hours studying their ships, their weapons, and their tactics. He realized that the Zayari relied on predictable strategies and structured formations. Humans, however, excelled at improvisation and adaptability. He began to propose unconventional defenses: mobile turrets hidden in asteroid fields, decoy ships disguised as floating debris, and diversionary attacks to confuse the enemy. Some nobles were skeptical, but Seraphine supported every recommendation. "You must trust him," she said to a group of doubters. "He has seen possibilities we do not. Do not let pride blind you." Elias also spent time learning the alien culture more deeply. Being husband was more than giving advice. He attended court ceremonies, observed political negotiations, and listened to stories of Zayari history. The lessons were subtle but essential. Every decision carried consequences, and the nobility valued honor above all. Despite his growing influence, Elias felt the weight of isolation. Even with the queen's trust, some nobles remained hostile. Their whispers followed him, and their eyes often bore into his back as he walked through the palace. One evening, as he reviewed battle simulations, a young Zayari officer approached. Her voice was hesitant but respectful. "Sir, your strategies, they saved our fleet today. Some of us did not believe at first, but now we see your value." Elias smiled faintly. "Thank you, but we must prepare for what comes next. The Vrylan are clever, and they will test us again." The officer nodded. "We will follow your guidance if you will lead us." That night, Elias and Seraphine met in private. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. "You are learning quickly," she said. "Not just about strategy, but about leadership, about understanding people. That is what makes a husband in our tradition: loyalty, wisdom, and courage. You have all three, though you may not realize it yet." Elias looked at her, a mixture of gratitude and concern in his eyes. "I fear failing. The Vrylan will not stop, and the council is not fully behind me." Seraphine's gaze was steady. "Fear is natural. It sharpens your mind and focus. But remember, you are not alone. You have me, the Empire, and the loyalty of those who choose to see your worth." In the days that followed, the conflict escalated. Skirmishes occurred near border sectors, testing the defenses Elias had designed. Each time, human creativity turned potential disaster into success. The nobles began to notice. Some who had doubted him now nodded in quiet respect. Others remained skeptical, their distrust like a shadow at the edge of every meeting. Through it all, Elias realized a crucial truth. Victory was not only about weapons and ships. It was about human ingenuity, the ability to see solutions in chaos, to adapt, and to inspire others to follow. His ideas gave the Zayari a new kind of hope, a sense that they could face the Vrylan not only with strength but with cleverness. Late one night, as he looked out over the city, Elias reflected on his journey. He had entered this alien world as a visitor, a diplomat and a joke, husband. Now he was a key part of the Empire's defense, a bridge between two species and a symbol of the potential humanity held. The path ahead was uncertain. The Vrylan would strike again, larger and more prepared. Elias would need every skill, every lesson, and every ounce of courage to protect not only the Queen, but the Zayari people. And yet, in that uncertainty, He felt a spark of determination. Humans had always survived against odds that seemed impossible. They had adapted, learned, and triumphed. Now, in the heart of an alien empire, Elias knew that human resilience would once again be tested, and perhaps, once again it would shine. He turned to Seraphine, who stood silently beside him, gazing at the stars. "We have a long road ahead," he said. She smiled faintly. "Yes, husband, and I would not face it with anyone else." Elias nodded, the weight of his responsibilities heavy but his resolve stronger than ever. He had survived challenges before, but this was unlike anything he had imagined. He was no longer just a human in a foreign world. He was part of its destiny, and he would not fail. Tension hung over the Xiari capital like a heavy fog. The Vrylan threat had grown stronger, their fleet now numbering in the thousands. Patrols along the border reported sightings of large warships gathering, and intelligence indicated they planned a full-scale invasion. Every member of the court felt the weight of impending conflict. Elias Grant, human and now husband to Queen Seraphine, moved through the palace corridors with purpose. Each step was calculated, each decision a balance between caution and boldness. He had learned much about Xiari customs, about the importance of honor, strategy, and perception. Yet despite the knowledge, unease lingered. The queen had summoned him to the council hall early that morning. The nobles were already gathered, murmuring among themselves. Elias noticed that several of the older nobles avoided his gaze, their expressions tight with doubt. Seraphine raised her hand for silence. "We face a threat unlike any before. The Vrylan are strong and relentless. We must unite our minds and our hearts to protect our people. Husband, speak." All eyes turned to Elias. His voice was calm but firm. "The Vrylan assume we will respond predictably," he began. "We have prepared our defenses and trained our fleets, but we cannot rely on convention. If we fight as they expect, they will overwhelm us. We must act differently." A tall noble, arms covered in bronze scales, spoke sharply. "You are human. You do not understand our ways. Your methods may bring ruin." Elias met the noble's gaze evenly. "I have studied your ways. I have observed your strengths and your weaknesses. I understand enough to know that innovation is our greatest weapon. The Vrylan cannot counter what they do not anticipate." The room was silent. Even those who had doubted him before began to consider his words. Seraphine nodded. "Explain your plan." Elias took a deep breath and outlined a strategy that blended Xiari strength with human ingenuity. Small squads of ships would use asteroid fields and gravitational slingshots to move unpredictably. Decoy fleets would lure the Vrylan into traps. Communications would be scrambled in ways unfamiliar to the enemy, creating confusion and slowing their advance. Every measure was designed to reduce casualties and protect key installations. Some nobles shook their heads in disbelief. Others leaned forward, listening carefully. When Elias finished, a long pause filled the hall. Finally, Seraphine spoke. "This plan is unconventional, but it is sound. It requires courage and faith. Are we prepared to act together as one empire?" The nobles hesitated. Many were proud, resistant to change. But the queen's authority, combined with Elias's calm reasoning, swayed enough to give the plan a chance. Over the following days, preparations began. Engineers constructed hidden turrets in asteroid fields. Pilots trained on new maneuvers. Communication networks were adjusted to Elias's specifications. The palace was a hive of activity, and the human worked tirelessly alongside Xiari officers, ensuring every detail was precise. Yet not everyone supported him. A faction of nobles led by the bronze-scaled officer plotted in secret. They whispered that a human had no right to influence strategy, and sought to undermine Elias at every opportunity. They spread rumors among junior officers, questioning his judgment and loyalty. One evening, while reviewing fleet deployments, Elias noticed subtle inconsistencies in the reports. Certain ships were missing from positions they were supposed to hold. He realized that sabotage was at work. He brought the matter to Seraphine privately. "Someone is undermining our preparations," he said. "They are trying to make us fail before the Vrylan arrive." The queen's expression hardened. "I feared this. There are those who cannot accept your role. We must act carefully. Exposing them too early could fracture the council." Elias nodded. "We need evidence, and we need to protect the fleets." The next few days were tense. Elias and Seraphine worked to track the conspirators while continuing preparations for battle. Hidden cameras and sensors revealed secret meetings and coded communications among the plotting nobles. It became clear that the leader of the faction sought to discredit Elias completely, and if possible, remove him from the court. One night, the conspirators acted. A sudden ambush occurred near a supply route outside the city. A transport fleet carrying weapons and provisions was attacked by disguised forces that appeared to be Vrylan. But in truth, the ambushers were the rebels from the council. Elias received the alert immediately. Without hesitation, he coordinated a counterattack. Using human ingenuity and quick analysis, he identified the ambush points and directed fleets to intercept. Hidden Zayari turrets activated, forcing the attackers into traps. Within hours, the fleet was safe and the rebels were exposed. When the conspirators were brought before the queen, she turned to Elias. "You have proven yourself not only in strategy but in loyalty and courage," she said. "The Vrylan are a threat, but those who betray from within are far more dangerous. You have protected me and you have protected our people." Elias bowed. "I only acted to prevent harm, Your Majesty. That is my duty as husband and as an ally." The queen's eyes softened. "Your duty is more than words. It is action. You have earned respect not only from me but from those who doubted you." The conspirators were punished according to Zayari law. Their actions had endangered the empire, and their titles and privileges were revoked. The message was clear. Betrayal would not be tolerated. With the internal threat neutralized, Elias turned his attention to the approaching Vrylan fleet. Scouts reported movement near the border, ships numbering far greater than initially estimated. The full-scale assault was imminent. Elias met with the queen on the balcony overlooking the city. Below, the towers gleamed in the morning light and ships patrolled the skies. He could feel the weight of the coming battle, the lives that depended on every decision he made. "Are you ready, husband?" Seraphine asked. Elias nodded. "I have prepared every measure I can. The Vrylan will test us, but we are not defenseless. Your people are strong, and with careful strategy we can turn their strength against them." Seraphine placed a hand on his shoulder. "I trust you. We will face this together. No matter the outcome, your courage and wisdom have already proven your worth." That evening, as fleets took their positions, Elias continued to refine tactics. He worked with Zayari engineers, pilots, and strategists, blending human creativity with alien technology. Every detail mattered: timing, positioning, and communication. The night passed slowly. The stars reflected on the ocean below, the city towers glowing softly against the darkness. Elias could not sleep. His mind raced with possibilities, contingencies, and predictions. He knew that in moments of crisis, clarity of thought could save lives. At dawn, the Vrylan fleet was visible on the horizon. Ships of immense size glinted in the sunlight, moving with deadly precision. Elias stood beside the queen on the command balcony, watching the enemy advance. "Remember," he said quietly, "they expect conventional tactics. We will be unconventional. Every move will count, and our people must trust the plan." Seraphine nodded.
"And they will."
"They trust you. I trust you." As the first Vrylan ships approached, Elias felt a strange calm. The past days of struggle, preparation, and tension had led to this moment. Every challenge, every doubt, every whispered conspiracy had tested him. And now he was ready to face the ultimate trial. The battle would test not only skill and strategy, but the very resilience of humanity and the Zayari alike. And in the heart of it all, Elias would stand not only as a human among aliens, but as a symbol of courage, loyalty, and ingenuity. This was the turning point, the moment when the fate of the empire would shift, and when the human would show why trust, wisdom, and creativity mattered as much as strength in the heart of an alien world. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of determination within him. He was no longer a visitor, no longer a diplomat. He was husband, protector, and partner to the queen, and he would not fail. The dawn sky over the Zayari capital burned with light. Vrylan ships, vast and menacing, filled the horizon. The air thrummed with energy as fleets aligned, weapons charged, and the fate of the empire hung in the balance. Commander Elias Grant, human and husband to Queen Seraphine, stood on the command balcony studying the enemy. Every detail mattered. Every decision could tip the scales between victory and defeat. "Are our forces ready?" Elias asked, his voice calm but steady. Seraphine's eyes reflected confidence and trust. They are prepared. We follow your strategy, Elias nodded. Then we act with precision. Remember, the enemy expects us to respond predictably. We will be unpredictable. The first wave of Vrylan ships advanced. Their formation was tight, disciplined, and deadly. Sensors indicated their weapons were capable of destroying several Zayari cruisers with a single volley. Yet Elias had prepared for this. Hidden turrets in asteroid fields, decoy fleets disguised as drifting debris, and rapid maneuver routes using gravitational slingshots awaited them. He coordinated with the fleet commanders. Squad A, engage the outer flank but maintain formation near the moons. Squad B, use the decoys to draw their attention. Keep communication tight. Follow timing exactly. The Zayari pilots hesitated at first. They had trained for standard formations where strength came from order and discipline. Yet Elias's calm guidance encouraged them to trust in his unconventional approach. As the battle began, the Vrylan struck hard, expecting a straightforward confrontation. Their weapons fired and explosions illuminated the void of space. But the Zayari fleet moved differently than expected. Ships twisted around asteroids, used hidden turrets for ambushes, and diverted the enemy into traps. The Vrylan struggled to adapt. Elias observed every move, giving precise commands. His human creativity and adaptability turned the tide. Where the Zayari had once relied only on power, they now combined it with cunning. The Vrylan fleet, though larger, began to falter. On the command balcony, Seraphine watched the battle unfold, her eyes unwavering. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said softly. Elias did not look at her. His mind focused entirely on the fleet, adjusting movements, directing counterattacks, and ensuring the protection of civilian transports. Each maneuver saved lives. Each strategy weakened the enemy. As the engagement continued, the Vrylan attempted a concentrated strike on the palace defenses. Their goal was to break morale and force surrender. Elias anticipated the move. Using hidden satellites and slingshot maneuvers, he diverted the strike force into a decoy corridor, where concentrated turrets awaited. The Vrylan fleet suffered losses without inflicting damage on the Zayari infrastructure. In the council hall, some of the skeptical nobles now watched with awe. The human, once doubted and whispered about, had proven his worth. His strategies were precise, adaptive, and deadly effective without unnecessary loss of life. One of the generals, who had been openly critical, spoke aloud. Remarkable. Human thought has changed the course of this battle." Elias did not hear the comment. He was too focused on the next phase of the plan. The main Vrylan fleet was larger and still formidable. He directed squads to use combined attacks, rapid strikes, gravitational shifts, and synchronized diversions. Communication was constant, every movement calculated. Hours passed, and slowly the Vrylan forces began to retreat. Their disciplined advance had been broken by unpredictable tactics, their morale shaken by the precision of the Zayari response guided by a human mind. Finally, the last Vrylan ships withdrew, disappearing into the void. The battle was won. Fleet sensors confirmed the losses were minimal for the Zayari, while the enemy had been weakened substantially. Seraphine turned to Elias, her eyes shining. "You have saved my people. You have saved my empire." Elias shook his head. "We did this together." The fleet, the pilots, the engineers, they followed orders, but it was their courage that made this victory possible. She smiled faintly. "And yet your guidance was the spark that made them believe in a new way. Without it, many more would have fallen." The news of the victory spread quickly throughout the empire. Citizens gathered on balconies, waving banners and cheering for the Zayari fleet. Among the crowd, whispers of admiration for the human husband circulated. Children asked their parents if humans were truly part of their world. Elder nobles nodded in respect, some even approaching Elias to offer quiet congratulations. Despite the celebration, Elias remained vigilant. The Vrylan might retreat now, but their threat would not vanish entirely. He began planning for long-term defenses, training programs, and alliances that could strengthen the empire further. In private, Seraphine took Elias to a quiet chamber overlooking the city. The morning light reflected on her silver-blue skin, and her eyes softened as she looked at him. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have changed the Zayari forever. Humans are not just guests. You have proven that our peoples can work together, that your ingenuity, your courage, and your loyalty are gifts. Elias felt a swell of emotion, tempered by the weight of responsibility. I only acted with what I know. I could not have done it without your trust, Your Majesty. She stepped closer. Husband, I trusted your heart when you spoke a single word. That trust has been rewarded, and now the Empire trusts you as well. For the first time, Elias allowed himself a quiet moment of pride. His journey had been difficult. From a simple human diplomat, jokingly choosing a title, he had become a protector, strategist, and symbol of unity. The title of husband was no longer a joke. It was a bond, sacred and honored. In the following weeks, peace returned, though vigilance remained. The Zayari strengthened borders, rebuilt fleets, and trained soldiers with strategies inspired by Elias. The humans aboard Odyssey shared knowledge of Earth technologies, while learning deeply from Zayari science. Elias's influence grew, but he remained humble. He continued to advise the Queen, attend council meetings, and work with the fleet. His human mind provided ideas, but always tempered by respect for Zayari traditions and wisdom. One afternoon, while walking through the floating gardens with Seraphine, Elias reflected on all that had happened. The court had doubted him. The Vreelan had challenged him. Yet through trust, creativity, and courage, humanity had shown its worth. You have changed my empire, Seraphine said, breaking his thoughts, and you have changed me as well. Elias looked at her, the floating gardens below casting reflections in her eyes. I never expected to come here and be more than a visitor. I never imagined a single word could lead to this, she smiled, her expression gentle. Husband, sometimes the smallest choices carry the greatest weight. You spoke truth from your heart, and that truth has shaped destiny. Elias nodded, understanding fully now. The title was not about ceremony or honor alone. It was about responsibility, courage, and partnership. Humanity had proven itself not through force alone, but through intelligence, creativity, and loyalty. The final weeks before the Vreelan retreat saw Elias fully accepted by the Zayari. Nobles who had once doubted him now consulted him on strategy, trade, and governance. Pilots sought his advice on tactics, engineers on innovative solutions, and the Queen's court relied on his judgment as a partner, not merely as a guest. When the first message of peace arrived from the Vreelan, acknowledging the Zayari's victory and agreeing to cease hostilities for the time being, the palace erupted in celebration. The streets filled with people cheering for the fleet, for the Queen, and quietly for the human who had helped guide them. Elias stood with Seraphine on the palace balcony as the city rejoiced below. He felt a sense of calm fulfillment. The challenges had been immense, yet humanity had shown that courage, ingenuity, and heart could stand against overwhelming odds. Seraphine turned to him. Husband, your journey with us has only just begun. There will be new challenges, new threats, and new choices. But I have no doubt you will continue to show what humans are capable of. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the stars reflected in the city lights. I will do my best. For you, for your people, and for humanity. The Queen smiled. That is enough. Together we will face the future. And so, the human who had spoken a single word, husband, stood beside the Queen, not as a visitor, not as a diplomat, but as a partner, a protector, and a symbol of what humanity could achieve. In the heart of an alien empire, humans had shown that intelligence, courage, and loyalty were forces powerful enough to shape the stars themselves. The future was uncertain, but Elias no longer feared it. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and he would stand as proof of that truth. The empire celebrated, the fleets rested, and the stars stretched endlessly above, a canvas for new adventures, new challenges, and new triumphs. And at the center of it all, the human husband stood ready to face whatever came next, knowing that courage, creativity, and heart would always guide him.